It's okay, I'm a doctor. Now you may be able to weld everything from a broken heart to the crack of dawn, but I bet you can't weld a cracked windshield. So I'm riding down the road the other day and I hear the rock hit, and I know right away I'm going to see a chip in the windshield, and sure enough, chip in the windshield as well as a little spider crack all around it. And I thought, you know what, should I replace it? It's kind of what I've done most of my life. But no, I thought, you know what, why not show you how to repair a windshield chip and possibly a crack too. So let's go ahead and get started with a simple windshield repair kit that you can buy off the shelf. I think you can see what's going on here. We have a big chip in our windshield, and it's actually got a star forming. In other words, we've got some little runners, some cracks that are starting to run out from the little chip or the bullseye. Actually, it's a pretty decent sized chip. We'll dig that out here in one moment. Let me first explain what's going on, or let me first just talk about what we're going to do. We're going to use a simple windshield repair kit. You can buy this at your local O'Reilly, Advanced Auto Parts, AutoZone. You can buy them on Amazon. Wherever you want to get these, you can find these readily available. I purposely bought this at O'Reilly just so I could show you off-the-shelf stuff to use. I do like to use the ones that have either a syringe like this or some type of vacuum that actually pulls a vacuum, because it's going to impregnate itself. The resin is inside the crack, hopefully, and seep in there rather than just letting gravity take place. Now let me explain what's going on here. So with this windshield, it's laminated safety glass. So this is kind of what we have going on. We have a sheet of glass here and a sheet of glass here, and this is basically a laminate, kind of like a rubber, where these two pieces of glass are bonded together. So as you can see, we're kind of delaminating on the top of this windshield up here, and that's what's happening here, is that this middle section is starting to kind of let go of the glass. You'll see that on a lot of old windshields along the edge sometimes. So that's what we have going on. And what this chip is it's right here, and it's only on this outside piece of glass. It's not cracked in here. If it were cracked in here too, we would see kind of a three-dimensional effect going on. You would definitely see some different runners. They're not going to crack in the same place. So if it were cracked down here, we would have no ability to fix it at all. You'd replace the windshield. So we just kind of have a superficial crack and chip on this outside piece of glass. Now the first thing we want to do is clean this really well. Now I'm pretty particular about cleaning glass. I like to use a foaming glass cleaner. I also like to use a paper towel. I know the paper towel is clean. If you want to use a microfiber and Windex, go ahead, have at it. And I'm going to clean this 3 times. First, I'm going to put the foaming cleaner on there, cover the whole area, and clean it really well. Then I'm going to take a brand new razor blade, I'm going to foam it up again, and then I'm going to clean the surrounding area. Be careful, you don't want to scratch this, and you won't if you keep it nice and flat and make sure it's a brand new blade. But around this chip, it might try to hang up on you. But mainly, you're just trying to get any contaminants away from here. And then one more time. Brand new paper towel. Now I know that's nice and clean. Now, what you don't want to do when you see a chip like this is push on it, and especially from the inside. If I were to push any pressure at all from this, I would make those little runners just start running. And once you do that, you might as well replace the windshield. In fact, if it's any bigger than, say, a quarter, maybe a half dollar, I would definitely recommend replacing the windshield. Even a professional coming out, I would just tell the insurance company, if it's going on insurance, that, hey, it's bothering my line of sight, I'm concerned with it, and they probably won't have a problem replacing it. But again, that's just my recommendation. I grew up in an auto glass business, so kind of know a thing or two. But again, my recommendation would be a quarter, half dollar. Bigger than that, then go ahead and replace the windshield. But this one's definitely on that edge of being able to. I should be able to get the majority out of this, and even with this kind of household kit, if you will. Now what I want to first do, I want to kind of dig out the center because I don't want a lot of fragments in there that are going to impede the flow of the resin or the glue that's going to go in here. I've got what I would call an upholstery pin. It's used in all types of upholstery, auto upholstery, but you could use a thumbtack or a push pin, a needle, something like that. But I'm just going to get in here, and again, don't work too hard because you don't want to create more problems than you have, but you just want to dig out any loose kind of impediments that may be in there. And you also probably want some safety glasses on because when you're picking, you may be flinging little pieces of glass, and that's the last thing you want is a piece of glass in your eye. Okay, now we've got our kit. Open this up. There's instructions in here to tell you what to do. This is your resin. We'll use that in a few moments, or your glue. Resin, glue, same thing. Right now, these are the things we want. This will be used in the last part, that little cover or clear acrylic sheet. Now you can probably figure this out, but basically we want this hole right over the center of our chip. So I'm going to peel one side of this, and then we're going to put that right over the center of that chip. Make sure it lays down without wrinkle. And then basically we're going to have this that's going to stick on here. So and it makes the most sense to have that tab up high. And now we're going to take this and we're going to try to make sure that we center that over that hole as well, because that's how we're going to get the resin in there. Okay, so we've got our pedestal on. It's nice and tight. We've got it good and sealed. Now we want to take our resin, and you either have a twist top or a top that you have to cut off with a razor blade or a knife. And now we want to almost fill this up. And if you do fill it up, that's fine. All right, you want to save your resin, so put that aside. We're not done with that yet. Then we're going to take our plunger and stick it in here. Nice and firm where it gets a good seal. And now you can see that we have a couple of notches in here. We've got this little wire thing here, and that's going to help lock this into place. And what we're doing is creating a vacuum in there. So lock that in. So what we're doing is creating a vacuum, and it should be pulling all the air out of that crack, creating a vacuum. And then what we're going to do is then push this down in a moment and then push all that resin back in there. So right now we're creating the vacuum. It's sucking air out of there. In fact, maybe we're getting some footage on the inside of it actually bubbling. And it wouldn't be a bad idea. You can kind of tap this. Don't hit it with like a screwdriver or anything like that. You don't want to create more issues. But if you can kind of vibrate it a little bit, it might help release those air bubbles that are trapped in those tight cracks. Now you want to leave this on a vacuum for about 10 minutes. Okay, so we've created our vacuum. We've now let it sit for 10 minutes. Now what we want to do is basically carefully remove this, kind of twist it back and forth, let it get a little bit of air. And if you want to, you can put a few more drops of resin in there. You don't have to. They don't say to do this, but I am. And now what we're going to do is now we're going to pressurize it. And so now we'll remove our clip. And now we're going to push this down to push all that back in. And so now that's going to, that clip will now lock that into place in the down position. Actually, I'm going to reset that. I want a little more travel action out of that plunger. Bring it up to the top. Keep it pressurized, and now we want to let that sit for 20 minutes. And all that resin should now be pushing in to where we created that vacuum, removed all that air, should be pushing into those voids. Yeah, it looks like our cracks are disappearing. I still see a couple of runners. It may not get into. We may have not got a good enough vacuum in there, but it's definitely clearing up around the main section. And I'm going to go ahead and fully give it a little extra pressure. If you'll see, I just put too much pressure and it blew out the gasket I had right under there. Hopefully I've given it enough time to pressurize and push into there. We're not wanting to let it dry right now. We're just wanting to get that resin inside that crack, keep it pressurized for a little bit. Okay, we haven't quite waited 20 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and pull this off. So first thing we're gonna do is pull off our syringe or our plunger. It was still pressurized, that's good. And we'll take a razor blade and we want to basically get off that adhesive. And I'll give you a tip here. If you'll keep it a little wet, then it won't try to grab your razor blade. So put a little bit of pressure on it. So I can already tell we didn't get everything off, but that's all right. And now you can do this one of two ways. You can keep this brand new razor blade straight up like this and scrape it across back and forth, kind of level it out, or you can just come across the top like this. Now sometimes this might dig it some out if you've got a big hole. If it's in your direct line of sight, then you probably want to do more of a kind of a scrape, but you want to be careful not to scratch the windshield. But I'm just kind of leveling across the top. Now I can still see that we've got some cracks in there that we didn't get into, but I think you're getting the idea. Let's clean this up a little bit. We're not done yet. So now we're going to take our little acrylic sheet here that you get with the kit. And if you want to, you can kind of hold it down here for a dam. And you want to just kind of dab some resin in your biggest holes. And by the way, this resin is UV activated, so sunlight, you don't want to be in direct sunlight unless you want this drying really quick. I'll put a good amount in here and then just kind of let it lay down, removing all the air as it goes. So you see it kind of laying down and purging all that air away from it. If you need to, you can kind of use the back side of your razor blade or the front side. And just understand your windshield is curved and that acrylic wants to lay flat, so understand that too. So I'm just going to leave it like that. It's basically all level over my crack. I'm not going to be happy with that, by the way, but I'm going to show you the honest results. So we can leave that for 20-30 minutes or out in the sun and let that dry, or if you have a UV light, such as right here. Okay, I think we're dry enough. We can either peel this up, be careful doing this, or you can actually kind of scrape it off if you want to, but that comes off rather easily when it's nice and clean. Now we have a layer of basically acrylic over the top of this. Now you can kind of see that round acrylic, or that square sheet. And you can see I can bring this off dry if I want to, but I really like keeping it a little wet. Some will argue with me about this step, but I like to keep that razor blade wet. It keeps from scratching the glass. It acts as a lubricant. And it keeps everything from sticking to that blade. Now first, you could probably call this a failure because I still see my cracks here. It's much better. Our chip is just about gone. And what we would do, we would use that acrylic sheet again, put another dab or two of resin in there, and lay that acrylic sheet on there and do it again. Now, you're not going to be able to get those cracks. We've pretty much sealed those off, but we could make that pit a little better. There's a little bit of a dip there. I'm not going to worry about it. So our crack is right here. So you can see it's still very much there, but all the chipping is gone, pretty level there. But as far as our cracks, it did not impregnate into those cracks and fill those. Well, things don't always go perfectly, such as in the case of us repairing this windshield. Now, I've been around auto glass my whole life and replaced tons and tons of windshields, but never was really a professional windshield crack repair. We typically would replace windshields and let other businesses handle the crack repairs. But anyway, there is a profession to it. Listen, there's guys that'll come out and repair cracks, all the way across the windshield. I think at that point you should just replace it. But my point is, I may have done something not the best in this situation, but I would say that's a pretty typical repair. And you're probably always going to see some type of remnant of the repair when you are repairing a crack. You'll see the pros that get in there and actually do those crack repairs, and they'll push on the cracks and they'll drill little holes at the end of the crack and try to spread that crack out so the resin will get in it. There are a lot of different ways to get that repair to be better, but I wanted to show you something that was pretty typical and not getting into a place where you could possibly, because once you start pushing from the inside of that windshield, it's easy to make that crack. It's easy to make that crack run all the way out, and it will start running and you won't stop it. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you thought of that. It hit it pretty good, but you can definitely see it. It's something that we'll definitely be replacing in the next few months anyway. But you know what? It kind of gets it out of sight of actually, sticking out like a sore thumb and just sticking out like a sore pinky. I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Let us know. Have a great day. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, which I'm sure some of you do, then let us know, or first, give us a thumbs down, but then let us know in the comments why. Have a great day. Keep smiling.